Alright, this is gonna be a little bit silly. A little bit silly for me. Um, I heard that the Iceberg meme format is pretty popular right now. I'm not a huge fan of it myself. I haven't watched a whole lot of videos. I get recommended a lot of them, and I start watching them, and I get bored because the people who commentate on them usually have this sort of like top 10 scary movies that you haven't heard about kind of thing going on. That I just like, just like I lose interest very quickly. But so I guess you could say that this is very much inspired by Nick Fury's recent Iceberg meme series on disturbing movies. Something I always find really interesting. And she just has I feel like has a better style of commentating to get me interested in that kind of thing. The way I can't really do with a lot of these Iceberg things, but so I liked that thing so much. I started thinking about the Iceberg format and like the kind of things I've seen people doing, and I decided to give it a try with something that I don't think I've seen before. I don't think I've seen like a video or one of these posts going around before, for good reason, because it's kind of niche. But I have made, for better or for worse, a Monsterfucker Iceberg, which, to clarify, I guess like Monsterfucker community, Monsterfuckers, it's kind of like the name people give to this online niche of people who see Scary Monster and they go, oh yes, I would like for to date you. Possibly even to have a sex. I don't know. I don't necessarily I don't think it necessarily has to be like a sexual thing. It doesn't even have to like necessarily be like, oh yeah, if like monsters are real, I would like fuck a werewolf or I'd date a werewolf. It's just sort of like something characterized by this like communal interest in stuff that is scary and a little taboo and a little bit exciting because of that. And you've probably, I don't know, if you've been online, you know the internet, you've heard of it, you've probably seen this sort of thing before. Maybe not like in a sort of big, broad community standard, but you've probably seen someone be like, hey, I wanna take Mothman out to an Italian dinner. And that's pretty cool. You've probably seen some posts like that or some stuff, and maybe you thought it was a joke, and maybe you thought, hey, that's kind of hot. But I'm not here to judge. I don't really care if you're like coming from someplace within the community or outside of it. I'm just here to talk about some stuff that I've experienced, some things that I've witnessed. Because like with every kind of like fandom, I guess you would call it, they're like, trends and like tropes and like shows that like go in and out of the sort of the zeitgeist there. This is all a very long, confusing, rambling way for me to say, like, monster romance has always been a trope. There are some people who are more into it than others, and there's some people who are into it on a different sort of level than others. And I'm trying to use this format to like pick apart some of these trends and some of this history, and analyze, like really get into it. Really get into it now. So you probably know how icebergs work, right? Like you start on the top biz here. That's like entry level stuff. It's like stuff that pretty much everyone knows about to a degree. It's not too out there, not too crazy. And then as you get deeper into it, like things start to get a little bit like, oh, I haven't heard of that. That's interesting. So that's what we're going to be doing. That's what we're going to be looking at today, going from the top to the bottom. And I'll just pop right off, just get right into it. I'm going to move my little guy over here, my little box that I live in. So right at the top tiers, it's stuff that like, I feel like anybody can get into this. Like you don't necessarily have to be like a self-identified monster fucker. There's a lot of different names that people use now, like Terato. I'm not really sure how you pronounce that. I'm just gonna say monster fucker. It's like easy. I put, just sort of, I'm not including like every possible like monster romance genre thing I can think of, because that's a lot. But I'm starting with like the basic stuff everyone's heard of. Twilight, Teen Wolf, the series specifically, because if I don't specify, I have friends that'll get mad at me. Vampire Diaries, Star Trek, I think counts. There's human-alien romance, but like as you can see, like the top characteristics of these things is like they're like monsters in name, but they're still like generally speaking sexy people, you know, or attractive people. I don't know. Like sexy vampires has been a thing for like as long as vampires have been a thing, I feel like. And I could go into like detail about that, but I feel like it'll take too long. But there's this sort of foundational monster fuckery concept of like of wanting something that is both like dangerous to you and that like makes you desire it because of that danger, whether in like a romantic or sexual way or whatever. And these are like, you know, this is Monsterfucker media. Like you can like gripe as much as you want about Twilight or whatever, but it is Monsterfucker media, even if in like the barest terms, because it does play to that like taboo, to that like sense of danger. You know, that's all there. Then you get a little farther down, and I put Dracula on here because I feel like we got like our Monsterfucker elders out here, like who are like watching Bela Lugosi on screen or whatever, who are thinking like, okay, this just caused an awakening in me, I guess. God, this is going to be so weird to talk about this. I had like so much fun making this and like talking with my friends about it, but the idea of like talking to an audience about it is so much. Oh my God, I'm so nervous. But Dracula, it's a classic. It has like, don't let people lie to you. It's got like sexual tones in it. It's got like some weird vampiric flirtation going on there. It's like a characteristic of like this sort of gothic genre. There's like an element of fear, but also an element of allure, you know? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about? Beauty and the Beast, obviously. That is like the entry level. That's like the thing that you see as a kid, and then like it gets you into the deeper stuff later. But it's like at that point we're going into like some monster characteristics that are like not as humanoid. And you can see that as I'm going further down, I'm going to start talking about that, like the concept of like a more humanoid monster, both in like appearance and like in demeanor, and how that affects, oh my God, and how that affects people's response to it, to like the sort of niche it inhabits, the way certain people are drawn to that kind of thing and certain people are not, or that's a hard line for them, you know? And the Beast from Beauty and the Beast is definitely more of those one of those more monstery monsters. But it also ends. The movie also does end with him turning back into a human. It also it is very clear that he is like a human taking the form of a monster. It's entry level. It's a way to get into the concept, but it's like, and it's like a classic. But it's like he's human for like most of his life. He just had a weird patch in the middle there, and it's like, that's fun. We're going to move on to some stuff where that is less the case. I put right below Beauty and the Beast. Check this out. Orcs. This isn't like a media thing. Most of these are like shows or movies or books or whatever. But this is something I want to talk about. It's like a specific phenomenon, like outside of like any source material. Like, orcs are a high fantasy creature. You know them, you love them. They've got a different presence within, like, monster communities online than they do in pretty much any source material you could look at. The way people like them, the way people react to them. They're still pretty high up on the list because, like, okay, people have made this point before, and it's usually in a very condescending way, which I'm not a fan of. Look, they're the big green dudes with tusks and stuff. They're still good. They're still hot. Like, if you want to romance them for sure. Like, I would. You're not like a fake monster fucker for it or whatever. This is like inter-community discourse that like nobody else cares about. But yeah, like they're pretty high up on the list because if you're just like I don't know about this monster fucking business, but like I would really like just like a very big person to pick me up and carry me around, maybe. Like, there you go. That's the perfect monster trope for you. And they're all over the place. Like, they're so easily accessible within, like, online communities. Easily accessible. That's a weird way to phrase it. It's so easy to find, like, crazy, sexy orc fan art, you know? And they're not, like, from a specific thing. There are things that orcs are in, but that's not what we're talking about. Like, They're just everywhere, like loose, wandering about. We love it. We love to see it. Below that, we got The Shape of Water over here. You've seen The Shape of Water, right? Like, it was a pretty big deal movie. Guillermo del Toro, very cool dude. Definitely somewhere within the Monsterfucking community. I don't think he's a normie. That's my take on that. But it's like we're getting into the territory of monsters that look more monstery. He's very the creature. I don't really give him a name, like the subject, which is weird. That's a weird thing. That's a weird choice. But whatever. He doesn't have he isn't like crazy looking out there, but he's very like Creature of the Black Lagoon kind of influenced. He's got a very like this like cool aquatic biz, and it's like cool and it's like kind of hot. Maybe if that's your thing. It's my thing. I'm not going to judge you either way. But it's still pretty much a normie monsterfucker movie, if such a thing exists. There's a little bit of clash there. Like, it was a big deal movie. A lot of people watched it. It wasn't like some niche thing. It's The Shape of Water. You went to theaters to see it, and it's a canon, like, human monster romance thing going on. You can just go to the fucking theaters and watch this thing and get what you paid for. It's good shit. Below that, I got Mass Effect, which is a game series I've not played personally, but I know people who have, and I'm not a gamer. I'm not a video game person, but I, like, look up stuff about them. Sometimes they got interesting lore or whatever. They are cowards for not making like more diverse alien lady designs. There's a lot more sort of biodiversity within that for the dude characters, and whatever, that's fine. It's just kind of a trope within these sort of things where they'll have like all kinds of crazy looking aliens, but like the women still have to be like conventionally sexy woman character. And I've got bias because I'm a lesbian, so it's like, of course I want to see like the crazy looking lady characters. Of course I don't want like the most conventional, like the most like barest bones alteration of a conventionally attractive woman. I want to see some variety in there. That's for me. That's what I want. Below that, I got Gargoyles, the Disney series, not just like Gargoyles in general. I gotta clarify. That's why I'm making a video for this. I feel like a lot of this stuff needs like clarification that I can't really put into this like meme format. I just want to talk about it too. Gargoyles was a Disney series. It was good, and it was surprisingly monsterfuckery. Like she's straight up like the human character Oazmazu. Like she gets with the main gargoyle dude Goliath. I haven't watched this series in a really long time, but it was definitely like formative. I think people understand what I'm talking about. And it's like, again, it's Disney. Like you don't have to go far out of your way to find this shit. It's just there. And Goliath has definitely like more of an unconventional, like he's still obviously humanoid, but like there's a distinctness like from the typical mold. He looks like a monster. He looks like a gargoyle. And he's not like the only gargoyle character. And I'm just talking about him because he's like sort of the protag and because he is the love interest. Because for real, Eliza's the protag. She's the real protag, and he is the love interest. He is her trophy husband. That is canon. It's nice. It's sweet. Like, you don't have to think about it too hard. It's still pretty up there on the normie charts. It's easy to get into. I got Hellboy here, another Guillermo del Toro property, if I recall correctly. I mean, Hellboy is comics also, but I'm thinking of the movie. Well, movies, there's two movies, but like, we're talking about the first movie. Like, come on. I'm not meaning to be judgy. The second one's fine, but it's like the first one, and I'm not talking about the remake. Fuck that. Like, you know, I'm not talking about the remake, right? Like, you can infer. Okay, but yeah, Hellboy good. Comics are there, movies are there, lots of material to choose from, very easily accessible. But definitely, we're getting into the territory here. You can see we're getting to the end of this second tier. We're getting to the territory here where like someone who is just like walking in off the street, doesn't have any connection to this business, is seeing this. They might be a little bit like, oh, like, okay, she's romancing the big red demon guy. That's kind of strange, but whatever. He's got sort of a rugged charm to him. Like, they can still get into it. But it's getting to the point where we're starting to like weed out certain people. I think we're starting to weed out people that came here for like, you know, who came here for vampire stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with that, of course. I love vampires. I love them so much. But we're starting to get into the weeds. We're starting to get into it. Top of tier 3, Prince Sidon, the character from Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And again, this is like a character and not like a specific franchise or something, because if you were on like Tumblr or even like Twitter, I think to a degree, when this character was released onto the public, you were like in these circles, like the impact. The impact he had. And the biggest impact I think that he had, the conversation I want to have here, is that like a lot of people who definitely like would not self-describe as like into monsters, even in the sense of like more tame stuff like vampires or werewolves or whatever. Like, I don't even know if werewolves would be considered tame, but there's a precedent for them. They have their little niche in paranormal romance stuff, And they turn into humans sometimes. Some people are okay with it because of that, cowards, but but Prince Sidon had this like impact where people who were not like into like monsters as romanceable characters at all were suddenly like, and you saw that everywhere. It was crazy. Like, I'm trying not to get too explicit, even though like we're gonna have to. Like, I'm gonna have to at some point. But like, the fucking porn fan art was like coming out of the woodworks. People were crazy for this guy, and I understand it. Like, he's like big, he's tall, he's got kind of a himbo energy. He's just like a really like cool, friendly dude that also happens to be like this like shark creature. Like, I'm not even into Legend of Zelda. I told you I'm not a gamer, but that's the thing. Like, you don't have to be into the game. You don't have to be into like the monster communities or whatever. People saw this dude and they saw him like interacting and they saw like art of him and stuff like that, and they were just like, oh yeah, love that big fishy boy. And another sort of Monsterfucker staple that like transcended the boundaries of any particular like media right here is Mothman, which I'm using this as sort of like a stand-in for like the cryptid phenomenon within these communities in general. Like there was I mean, it's still going on, it's not like it's over, but there was a period of time like at its peak where like everyone was like all about cryptids. Everyone was talking about that shit in the monster community, and like somewhat outside of it too. People were just like into that stuff in general. But Mothman, like for some reason he became like this meme-ified figure, Like people were talking about him in the monster community, whatever, but like I feel like everyone sort of knew, everyone who was like online to a degree, like had seen like people make like edits of like a spooky Mothman art with like a flower crown on or something. It was just cute. I mean, I get it, because it's like moths are cute. Moths are kind of like cute little guys, and just like the idea of a person with like cool moth characteristics who's also a little bit spooky, also got a little bit of a mystery, to him. I like that. I think it's very fun. I think it was a good choice for like a figure to like sort of escape the bounds of the Monsterfucker community and get out into the normie world. But even as I say that, we are starting to get into the place where like I doubt like people, it's like the impact is different. Like if you're not getting into this stuff on Tumblr or whatever, you're gonna have a different sort of response. You're gonna see as I get further into it, I'm gonna bury some stuff that's gonna like make some terminally online people very uncomfortable, probably. Not like in a terribly bad way. I just mean like, you can read ahead on this thing, where it's going. Like, there are some of these things that were very much a phenomenon within the Monsterfucker community, and sometimes without, like, outside of it as well, but it doesn't necessarily mean they were good. Like, I should have put a disclaimer in front of this. I'm not ranking, like, the goodness or the value or the weird, not even necessarily like the weirdness of any of this. I'm just trying to talk about, like, the place it holds, like, within the community, like, the effect it's had, the way people have interacted with it, like, these sort of strange phenomenon that can really sort of only exist in, like, online communities that are fiercely devoted to one strange topic with an underlying current of sexuality to it, which I feel like a lot of people can, like, relate to, even if not necessarily, like, within the Monsterfucker circle. Like, if you've been in a fandom, there's stuff going on in there. Fandoms, there's stuff in there. Why do people go there? There's stuff in there. Look out. But yeah, as we go a little bit deeper, I put the next one down on the tier as Monster Musume. That is an anime that I've watched, like, I think like an episode of or something. I don't know. I was sort of like curious. I think I might have like read like some manga while I was in a bookstore or something. But it's like, it's monster girls, and they're like pretty, they're just conventionally attractive anime girls with monster parts, but like, once again, this is something that we're, like, I think like the snake girl in it, who I have no idea what her name is, I'm sorry for letting you down like this, but like, her design is such that it sort of became a subject of intrigue, even if you weren't someone who's necessarily into monsters or even necessarily into anime. Like, you've probably seen that, like, stupid long body pillow that has, like, her whole tail on it. That shit's crazy. I don't really know how to comment more on that, but I wanted to put it there because, like, I'm not very involved myself in anime subculture stuff, but I feel like the overlap exists, and I want to acknowledge it. Like, anime is a weird online subculture, and Monsterfucker is a weird online subculture, so we should be friends. Right below that, okay, yeah, if you've been online, like, at all recently, you've heard about Resident Evil Village. That's the most recent Resident Evil game. The one with, how do I put this delicately? Big vampire mommy milkers, I believe, is what the fans are calling them. Specifically, I'm talking about the character, Lady Dimitrescu. You've probably seen cosplay and like sexy cosplay and like TikToks and like whatever. You probably watched, if you're a huge ass nerd like me, you maybe watched some of the cast interviews with like the voice actors and stuff. Maybe you even played the game. I don't know. Crazy. But regardless if you played the game or if you're into Resident Evil at all, this is the shit like people are talking about now, so of course it's going on the thing. I wanted to put Resident Evil Village, or like the Resident Evil like Biohazard sort of verse. I mean, it's all in the same universe, but like Biohazard and Village are like very much their own sort of thing. And I wanted to put that separate from like Resident Evil in general. But that's the thing, like Resident Evil in general is like, it's a great game franchise. It's got cool zombies and stuff, but it's like only when we got to Village that you really see it sort of popping off in a Monsterfucker way. Like, I just feel like the games don't have that kind of impact. Like, they don't have the same kind of impact as Village specifically does. So that's why it gets its own entry. And I didn't want to put too many things on this because it's like, there's already so much. Oh my god, this is going to take so long. Next thing on here is Venom, the comics, the movie, whatever. Doesn't matter. The fucking space slime and the dude are in love. That's all that matters. This is canon, at least in the comic books it is, and basically in the movie too. And we'll see when the new movie comes out if they'll be brave enough to like actually acknowledge it. But yeah, like, you know about Venom. Once again, I feel like these don't need a lot of explaining because they become sort of like meme-ified in their own right. Regardless of like how interested you are in the movie or the comics, like, if you are at all interested in like monstery content, like dipping your toe into that, you're gonna come across some Eddie Venom art or whatever. It's gonna be great, and I love that for you. So we're getting into the territory now. We're going a little bit deeper. I feel like it's a little bit harder. It's a little bit harder to like talk to normal people, like to explain to like your coworker or whatever that you have like a romantic interest in the space slime and his psychically linked boyfriend. It's a little harder to talk about that than it is to like talk about the latest episode of Teen Wolf when it was still on or something. I don't know. We're getting there. We're getting down there. We're gonna go all the way down. I wasn't actually sure if I should put this next one on here. It's like, it's not a piece of media necessarily, or like even an individual character or figure. It is a specific ship, which I don't want to make like, I didn't want to like start like putting a bunch of like specific like monster human ships on here, because that could take all day. I could do like a separate iceberg about like my like favorite, or like, maybe not like an iceberg, but like I could do a tier list about like really cool canon monster human ships. Would be fun to do sometimes. But specifically, I put this on here. Constant Shark is the ship name for Constantine and King Shark. From it's DC. Again, I haven't read the comics in like a super long time, but I believe this was canonized within, wasn't it the Harley Quinn cartoon or a Harley Quinn cartoon. I don't know. But that's not important. It's not important. I didn't do research for this. How was I going to do research for this? Why would I ever? That's not important. The important thing is that, like, when this shit dropped, when people realized that John Constantine is out here, like, fucking the, like, cool shark man, like, that was like, it blew up for a little bit. And it wasn't like a huge thing. It didn't, like, turn the tides of the monster community or anything. It didn't, like, send ripples all throughout the internet, all throughout Tumblr or whatever. Most of this stuff is, like, it's like Tumblr. It's, like, about Tumblr. Come on. I'm unfortunately on Tumblr still. Like, and I've very unfortunately been on Tumblr for a long time. This is a lot of this stuff is, like, sort of Tumblr local in a way, but, you know, you're gonna have to forgive me for that. It's just how it is. This is just what I know. This is the only world I know. But it didn't, like, blow up huge or anything, but, like, people were getting interested. People were, like, giving it sidelong looks, like, okay. I feel like it's, like, relevant enough to point out that this was a thing. I feel like people should know. I feel like the people need to know. Anyway, down to, what is it? Tier 4. God, I need to go faster. I'm so stupid. Why did I do this? Tier 4. Put in the top there, Undertale. Everyone knows what fucking Undertale is. And it's like, Undertale's full of monsters. There's monster-related ships within there. But, like, the reason I really had to include this is because of Sans. Like, the whole, like, weird Sans like, the Sans phenomenon was almost on par with, like, the Onceler phenomenon, which is, like, I'm really hoping if you've gotten this far in the video, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because I don't want to explain it. Like, watch someone else's video about, like, Onceler and Sans and stuff like that, Kamaida or whatever. Like, it's like, it had to include that. He couldn't not acknowledge. Even though I feel like some of these you're gonna, as we get down here, some of these, like, Tumblr sexy man kind of figures almost sort of transcend the bounds of, like, Monsterfucker community stuff, because it's, like, not even, like, people want to fuck him because he's a skeleton. They just, like, for whatever reason, he just became, like, this blank slate for people to, like, imprint characteristics onto, and they were super into that for a while. Probably still are in some corners of the internet. I don't know. I try to stay away from places like that. It's scary there. It's like, I just feel like, I mean, he is a monster character. Undertale is a game that largely involves, like, monster characters, and I don't think I can, like, in good conscience, ignore the sort of impact that was there that I thankfully am not seeing a whole lot of, but I think is still, like, probably present to this day. This, like, lingering impact of, like, people being, like, weirdly horny for Sans and, like, other monster characters. I mean, people were horny for Papyrus for some reason. For Mettaton, I can understand that a little bit, but whatever. I'm revealing too much about myself. Undyne. But, you know, at the end of the day, like, I can't not include Undertale, and that's why it's here, because I legally was not allowed to not include Undertale. But we're going to jump right down from that to Jupiter Ascending, a movie that I think was sort of divisive. Like, I don't know if you could really call it a good movie, but at the same time, it was the best movie. You have to trust me on that. And I hope to God, if you're watching this, you were lucky enough to, like, see that. I watched it 4 times when it came out, like, in theaters, I mean. Oh my God. It's just so much my cup of tea. It's not going to be for everyone, but it was for me. And you can research into that on your own time. But the point is, it did have a relationship between the main character and a sort of, like, alien werewolf guy with wings. Oh my God, he had wings at the end. Like, I don't know how to explain this. It's sort of, you had to be there. Like, we're starting to get into that territory where it's like, you kind of had to be there. But besides that, there were, like, all kinds of crazy cool aliens and, like, alien space orgies in zero gravity. That was great. Like, big lizard dragon looking guys. Those were great. It's like, I don't know. I don't even know how to begin tackling this shit. But it's like, it was so good. It was such a time. I want to relive those days, those Jupiter Ascending peak days. I want it back. But I can't go back. I have to move forward. Unfortunately, that means I have to talk about Homestuck. Unfortunately, that means I have to talk about Homestuck. I mean, it's like Undertale. Like, I couldn't in good conscience not talk about this, because I think for a lot of people who, not like my age, I guess like a little bit younger, for people who were younger than me and who were like maybe didn't have like the same like weren't introduced to the same stuff. There were people who like this was like their first leap into like weird monstery, non-human-y human relationship stuff. Everyone was all about the quadrants. Everyone was all about like the concept of like these like of alien biology and alien mating and stuff. And I don't really want to talk about this because like at the time I was reading this, I never even got to the end. At the time I was reading this, they were still like teens, and it weirds me out to like think about it even in this like past tense way. But again, I can like, it was Homestuck. Fucking, it was everywhere. I can't, in good conscience, not talk about, like, the way Homestuck basically became, like, a breeding ground for people who want to fuck aliens. Like, but yeah. I'm gonna breeze right past that as much as I can. I'm gonna trust you to, like, fill in the blanks of why I needed to put that on this chart. I put under that the Magnus Archives. It was a podcast, a horror anthology podcast. I was very into it for a while, but I didn't actually reach the end because I got kind of, like, I don't know, there was so much hype around it when it started to like pop off online, and it's so weird to me that like it got popular in these like very specific circles, which is like sort of the epitome of this whole thing. So there were places where I just like could not be because everyone was talking about the Magnus Archives, and it was like killing my joy for it. But there are also places where like to this day like people have not fucking heard of this thing. But it was a good podcast. I still need to listen to the last season of it. And it was because it was horror, and because it was horror, there was lots of monsters and lots of people who were like having sort of a, you know, that crossover where you're like, this is scary, but it's a little bit sexy because it's scary. That's what all this is built on, inevitably. And if you were in the monster community at that time, at Magnus Archives peak, you probably remember a few tweets that the creator, Jonathan Sims, put out regarding like, how come I keep making these like horrifying eldritch creatures and everyone wants to fuck them? Like I'm sorry, but I'm not that sorry because I don't think he really didn't know. I think he was goofing. I feel like he knew. He doesn't seem like the kind of... I'm not accusing Johnny Sims of being a monsterfucker, but he doesn't seem like the kind of person that, like, wouldn't know that exists, is my take on that. But yeah. Like, if you were in the monster community at that time, you know the eldritch thirst was strong. The fear entities and the people, like, going through monstrous transformations, you know how it was. I don't have to explain it. I'm sort of copping out of explaining these because it's like, it's already getting so long. This is already going to be so stupid long a video. Strange Magic. You probably haven't heard of this fucking movie. There's a good reason for that. It wasn't that good, but it's also my favorite movie. My favorite movie is probably like Mad Max Fury Road, but this is like my favorite movie that's like, I don't have to like mentally prepare to watch it. I can just be like, oh, I want to watch Strange Magic again. Like, what the fuck? And just make some popcorn and sit down and watch it, you know? It was a what's his name? Star Wars man, George Lucas. He made this movie. He was like, we need to make Star Wars, but for girls. And that was really shitty. He's like, I don't want to like summarize all the drama of that, but it's like, he made some kind of stupid statements. Basically the gist of it, I think, is that he wanted to make something that was sort of, it was like he'd done Star Wars, so much Star Wars, and it was time to like do something that was like totally a different angle. And so he was trying to do this cool high fantasy fairies and goblins kind of deal, like this fairy tale vibe to it, and I think that's very cool. And I think I liked the animation, even though it was a little bit weird in some places. Whatever, you know how it is. I actually like it when animation is weird in some places, but none of this is the important stuff. I don't like it. It flopped. That's how that story ends. None of that's the important stuff. The important stuff is that it's like there's this whole plot line going on, and it all hinges on basically like an enemies to lovers romance between a fairy princess and the Bog King, who is, oh man, how do I describe him? He's like humanoid, but he's like covered in these like insectoid scales and like these creepy like sort of dragonfly like wings. He's distinctly made to be like unappealing to look at, even within the context of the universe. Like even other goblins like are supposed to like find this guy ugly, and he's like supposed to be like evil and nasty and stuff. But then it turns out that he just has, of course, a dramatic backstory, and he just needs to be loved. And it's like, ain't that just the absolute like building blocks of these sorts of tropes? Like, you gotta love it. Except for when you don't. There are instances where you don't, but I'm not gonna talk about that. I think it was a good movie. It's a canon relationship, and it's pretty normie in a lot of ways, so I could have put it up higher, but it's like nobody's fucking heard of this movie except for like me and like a bunch of other weirdos that for some reason got into it, usually like years after like it originally came out. I actually went to see this when I was in theaters. I went with my friend, and we were the only two people in the theater, and it was great because whenever something like fucked up and like extremely funny happened, I could just start like screaming, and I did. But yeah, that's me. That's the thing I like. Next is Hotel Transylvania, which is sort of a similar vein. It's kind of a weird kids movie that, like, for some reason, I don't really understand the Monsterfucker interest in this. I mean, I do, like, intellectually, because it's Hotel Transylvania and it's like all monsters and shit. Like, but they're so like cartoony and like squishy looking. Like they look like they're made of Play-Doh to me. I don't know. I feel like I could stretch that fucking Adam Sandler dad out. You know. I don't. Oh, that was so weird to say. I feel like. Oh. Anyway, but as I've learned recently, there are a fair number of people who are very into those characters and who are very upset about like their unattractive human sonas from the movie that's going to be coming out soon. So, and that's like been enough of a topic of conversation that I feel like it warrants being in here. And it's like, it is like a Monsterfucker movie technically, because like I guess the main character is sort of the dad, but like the other main character, Mavis, the daughter, is like a vampire who falls in love with a human, and they get together and they get married and they have I guess, like, is he a half vampire or is he just like a human? Because I think that's like it's like a controversial point, isn't it? Like that's like what a lot of the movies are about, is like Dad Dracula is like upset about his human grandson or something. I don't know. I watched the first movie. It was actually pretty good. Like, it's fine. The animation is fun. It's all zany and zoomy and all over the place, but it's like not something I can get that interested in. And it's going down here because it's like those guys like I feel like if you were to just tell someone, I want to fuck Dracula, like they might be like, I mean, don't tell this to strangers. Tell this to your friends. Tell this to your closest friends that you want to fuck Dracula. They might be like, yeah, I get that. He's like a sexy dude, Bela Lugosi. I get it. But if you were like, no, specifically, I want to fuck the Dracula that's played by Adam Sandler. That's a little bit harder to explain, I feel like. That's a little bit rough. Anyway, we're moving on. Tier 5. I put these two. I want to talk about creepypastas, and I want to talk about people who want to fuck slashers. We gotta talk about these like together, because here's the thing: they're like the same thing, but like it's like there were two roads diverged in a Yellowwood, and you can either take the one that takes you to like fucking Michael Myers or the one that takes you to fucking Jeff the Killer. But it's the same. At the end of the day, it's the illusion of choice. At the end of the day, it's the same fucking thing. It's like the same vibes. I get the same vibes from these kind of people. I'm sorry to be like these kind of people, but I don't get it, man. I don't get it. I'm sorry. I live in tiers like 3 and 4. I'm like, I consider myself pretty tapped into like the stuff, all the Monsterfucker community stuff, but like I don't go that deep, and I don't go that deep because I've seen what lies deep down, and that's why I made this, and it's gonna be horrible. We're gonna experience it together. But yeah, creepypastas, online horror stories, many of them very poorly written, some of them only slightly poorly written. Slashers, it's like the trope of like, you know, stabby killy person from like those serial killer movies from like the 80s or whatever. It's like, I appreciate both of those, like, sort of in their own ways, like as horror media, I guess. But there's some people who just like, they just really, really want to fuck Jeff the Killer. Like, so much that they'll like make a self-insert character as like a new creepypasta sort of figure, and then like write a whole book about her, and then like self-publish that book, and then you'll be able to like find that book and read that book. It's a lot. It's a lot. It just like, I don't know if creepypasta fans and slasher fans are like friends. I feel like it's one of those things. Like, you two are like the same person, but because of that, like your personalities force you to be like diametrically opposed. Like, it's like one side of you, it's like one of you butters your bread butter side up, and the other side, the other you butter it side down. It's like that, like Dr. Seuss, you know? Oh my god, I'm an idiot. But it's like that. You guys should be friends. I don't know why you're not friends. You guys should be friends. Below that is Hannibal, which, like, if you're a slasher fucker kind of person, you're probably a Hannibal fucker kind of person. And, okay, we're getting into the territory where I gotta explain myself, because there's gonna be people like, well, slashers aren't monsters. Like, some of them are just guys. Like, some of them, fucking Michael Myers is just a guy. Like, in some versions, it's, like, implied he's, like, possessed by the devil or some shit. I don't know. It's, like, nothing's really canonical, because it's that mess of early horror movie franchises where, like, canon just got, like, bopped about like a ping pong ball, you know? I don't want to get too into it, but it's, like, Jeff the Killer, Michael Myers, they're just guys that had, like, freaky stuff happen, and they started murdering people. They're just guys. Hannibal's just a guy. He's just a guy that eats people. Like, that's true, but it's, like, there's this overlap, you know? Monsterfucker community, it's like I said, it's not necessarily always sexual, and it's not always necessarily, like, 100%, like, traditional, like, Beauty and the Beast style monsters. Sometimes it's like people that kill and eat people. Like, you'll understand. If you're in it, you'll understand. I don't want to, like, keep going on and on explaining this. If you know, you know. You know? Also, my laptop is dying, so I think I have to take a break from this now. I'll get back later. Get excited for that. Enough of that. Okay. Okay. I'm back for real now. Time has passed. We can't stop. We can never stop the onward march of time. We just have to live with that. Where was I last? I just finished, I'd sort of like bare bones talked about Hannibal, because all you really need to understand about, like, the overlap with Hannibal and with, like, people who are into slashers and people later on we're going to talk about true crime people, because even though that's not necessarily, like, sort of within the same community, there's, like, enough overlap that I want to talk about it. So, yeah, all you need to understand for that is that sometimes there's an overlap of, like, monsterfuckers and, like, people who just, like, behave in monstrous ways, you know? And that's valid. That's legit. I feel like, I don't know, a lot of people focus on, like, the romance aspect of the community, and I feel like it does a disservice not to sort of acknowledge the horror roots, you know? Because, like, while someone's personal ideal might be might reside more on the romantic side, like, we sort of, like, owe these early tropes of, like, monstrousness and, like, the duality of, like, fear and attraction to, like, stuff like gothic horror mostly, I think. So I think you gotta allow for some overlap. I might just edit this out. This is so nothing. This is nothing. Anyway. Oh god, I can't believe I stopped right before I got to Bat Boy the Musical. I don't have, like, a lot of, like, I wouldn't say I have a lot of, like, very, like deep cut sort of interests, like things that I can be like, oh, you haven't heard of this? Well, I guess you wouldn't have. It's very obscure. I don't have a lot of things like that. Because it sucks to be like that. And it's like there are things I watch that I guess, like, could be considered obscure, but, like, not things that, I don't know. It's like, it's hard for me to tell what is and isn't, like, in vogue, you know? But I'm pretty sure Bat Boy the Musical has never been in vogue to anyone, except for, like, once again, like, me and a handful of other people who've got, like, a strange niche interest that this sort of ties into. So that's why this is so far down here. And also because, like, how do you talk about musicals in the sense of, like, monsterfuckery, you know? It's like, it's not like a movie. You can't really like classify it very easily into romance or horror or whatever. I think it's officially marketed as like a horror comedy, and that works. But it does have a romantic element. Oh boy, it's yeah. I mean, it's a musical I like very much. I have a sort of love-hate relationship with it, I would say, and I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it to people. If you do want to check it out, I always say whenever I recommend something to people, if you do want to check it out, just, check content warnings and stuff like that if you think that's going to be concern for you. And I'm usually available to try and, to sort of guide people through the process if you do want to get into something like Bat Boy. Not to say that Bat Boy is, a hugely, it's not a disturbing piece of media. It's horror comedy, and it touches on some sort of, some gauche subjects, some things that you might not be interested in seeing if you're, in it for, a fun, lovey-dovey good time. Or even, a fun, spooky, ooky good time. Either way, it's, there's some things going on in that musical. But it does count technically as Monsterfucker media for sure. It definitely falls into that. It's based on a cryptid. Bat Boy's a cryptid. It was a phony news article basically that reported on a bat child found and sort of spiraled out into a cultural thing and led to this musical, which is very, very little of it is really related to that. I just like giving a little bit of background information. But anyway, when I fucking stopped recording this to go eat dinner, I realized that I recorded 40 something minutes already. So I'm gonna try and not linger on things that I think are cool and fun. I'm just gonna kind of try to keep this moving. Next, let's see where we are. We are on tier 6. We're getting near the bottom, and I put for the first one on here, Bendy and the Ink Machine, which was a small game that you may have noticed, a small horror game that was released fairly recently, I think. I only played the first part. I actually did play this because it was free, and I could play it on my computer. So I actually did play this instead of just watching a Let's Play, which is what I usually do. And it's a fun, pretty good horror game. But there's once again, this is an issue of a niche group of people who have attached to it in a way that I don't completely understand, but nevertheless, I've seen weirder. I'm gonna judge you less for wanting to make out with an ink monster than some of the things that are coming later on this, and some of the things that even have come earlier on this. Me liking a thing does not excuse me from being you like that thing. I can do both. I have multitudes in me. But yeah, people like the gooey ink monster, and gooey, it's a ink monster, and also has these toon sort of physics to it, which I think is a fun addition, and adds a little bit of spice to this lineup because it's a kind of a variety of monster we haven't really had the ability to discuss yet. It's a little bit more out there, a little bit weirder, a little bit more gonna make people who are not initiated into this be I don't know about that. And that's why it's here. Down below that, we got a Slenderman Musical. I can't believe I had the opportunity to put multiple musicals on this list. I mean, a Slenderman Musical, as far as I know, is not a traditional stage performance. It is an album by Paul Shapiro, I believe. I didn't do any research for this. I'll put all the right names and shit in post if I have to. He's made a lot of great albums, a lot of great concept albums, and these sort of musical stories, these audio dramas in a way, a lot of great ones. This is not, I would say, one of the best, I wouldn't say is necessarily one of my favorite of his works. I don't think it's bad by any means. I think it's very good and interesting. You might notice it is about Slenderman, who you might also notice I've already talked about creepypastas and people who want to romance the creepypasta characters and such. So you might be wondering why this is separate. And that's because, I think it's very cool, and once again, I think it's very cool and fun when I know about something that's not part of not very well known, not usually part of the discussion. I want to flex a little bit. I want to show the weird stuff I know. B, there are multiple Slenderman sex scenes in this. Literally there are. And a lot of other weird stuff. And it's it's like fun and interesting and good as like a piece of art, I guess. I don't know if I'd necessarily like recommend it to people. Really depends on your taste. But it's the element of it where people are having sex with Slenderman. It's interesting. It's so hard for me to like explain. It's so weird, and I don't want to. I'm trying to like stay away from overusing the word weird in this because it feels counterintuitive to sort of what I'm doing here, which is just like talking about some interesting stuff within like an interesting niche community that I happen to be part of, you know. But it is a bit of a trip. And I do think it deserves to be like farther down on this list than like your run-of-the-mill like creepypasta fucker, because it's like Slenderman, the lore is a little bit different here than other Slenderman adaptations, I would say. And Slenderman is sort of treated as more of like part eldritch, part like feral animalistic kind of thing. And I'm not arranging these in order of like what I think is like best or what I like think is good. I'm putting them in order of like how like the sort of place I feel like they occupy within, if not even just the Monsterfucker community, my experience with the Monsterfucker community, which is like, I think this is an interesting thing. I think not a lot of people know about it, but I think it's very, very like there's a lot of odd choices that culminated in having like weird feral sex with Slenderman, you know? I don't know. I can't keep talking about this. Next is Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice, I mean, in some ways it's like a lot more mainstream than some of the stuff down here. But at the same time, I'm not talking about, you're going to notice there's stuff down here that like is very mainstream, like the media itself, but I'm not talking about the media itself. I'm talking about like the role it played within like monsterfuckery, you know, within the online communities and like the responses people have had to it and like the fan content that's arisen from it. I don't know if I've explained that well enough at the beginning. I'm just hoping you're picking up what I'm putting down, okay? And so I put Beetlejuice here. This one is actually, I think it was like my friend's suggestion. We were going through this together. We were cross-referencing some of the figures on, there's a Wikipedia for like Tumblr sexy men specifically, which is a trip, and I think you should check it out if you haven't. And we were cross-referencing that at this point, because it's like, we're getting to the point where it's like, there's a lot here that is specifically connected to that sort of phenomenon. Like, the things themselves are not necessarily that freaky, but it's like, there was such a weird response to them, you know? The way there was a weird response to Undertale, even though Undertale itself is like a very well-known, like, pretty mainstream, I'd say, game at this point. Like, you can dress up as Sans and Smash, it's pretty mainstream. But the response to it specifically within, like, these fan communities and, like, these monster communities and stuff like that added a new level to it, which is weird. And that's what's happening with Beetlejuice, I think, too. Which has sort of had a revival of fan interest since the musical came out. Talking about musicals again, yes, I am. And it's sort of created... I mean, you could do worse. You could do worse, but it's a character that, like, realistically speaking, I don't think you want to date Beetlejuice. Like, if you like grungy men, that's fine. Like, I sort of like fictional grungy men. I just like the vibes. I don't think it's fun. But it's like, you could do better. Like, love yourself. Don't go out with Beetlejuice. I'm not trying to judge. I'm just trying to explain what I've seen from my own perspective, and from my own perspective, love the Beetlejuice, the movie, the musical, love the cartoon. Don't really understand why you would like come away from that wanting to fuck Beetlejuice. Don't understand it. Below him, I put Psycho Goreman, which I think after like going on this whole thing about Beetlejuice, I'm about to like show my whole hand, being like, I'm gonna show my whole hypocrisy here, being like, I don't understand why more people don't want to fuck Psycho Goreman, the titular character from the movie Psycho Goreman. I really love that movie, and I really feel like it would have gotten more attention, I feel like it would have gotten like more hype from people who like these like classic, like it's got such a classic monster movie vibe. The like the crazy costumes and weird puppets, the way that like a lot of the puppets have like this little bit of moisture to them that for some reason is very characteristic of like movies of this class. It's campy and strange and sci-fi fantasy-esque. And Psycho Gorman as a character, I feel like he makes like really good monsterfucker bait, not necessarily in appearance, but in just that like he's like this like horrible, like violent character, but he's also like very charming in weird sorts of ways. And I can't understand why more people haven't been like, yeah, I love this guy. What the fuck? Like, I just think there's a lot of fun to be had there with him. And it's only this far down because I really haven't seen that much response. I've seen like some. I haven't really seen like that much talk about the movie in general. But I feel like he is, like, in his essence, he is like monster data, like a dateable monster. He is a dateable monster. He is a highly eligible monster bachelor, is the vibe he gives me. And I think we should be talking about that, so I put him here. Then after that, oh my gosh, okay. We're getting into a zone. So far, all these sections has just been like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This section with the funky little beluga whale with the scary lighting, I think that's what that is. It's like, this is a special zone. I'm calling this the Monsterfucker Community Tumblr Sexy Man Crossover Special Containment Zone. Because the characters and like the franchises in here with the characters that I'm about to talk about, like they just sort of fit into this niche within a niche, which is like characters that like got turned into Tumblr Sexy Men figures for no apparent reason, but also like fill the Monsterfucker niche. So they are like Tumblr Monster. No, it doesn't work. Tumblr Monster Sexy Man. Tumblr Monster Sexy Man. Tumblr Monster Sexy. Okay, I'm gonna stop. But yeah, starting with Five Nights at Freddy's. It's Five Nights at Freddy's. It's recent-ish. I feel like I'm gonna look it up and find out it was like made like years ago, and I'm gonna realize how old I am. It's gonna be weird, but it's still in the zeitgeist. People know Five Nights at Freddy's, and depending on the circles you were in, you might have been online during a period of time where a lot of people were like weirdly horny for both the animatronics and like the purple guy who did the murders, I believe. I'm not super up to date on Five Nights at Freddy's lore because there's so much of it and I don't care that much. But I do like the animatronics design, but I don't want to fuck them or date them or any of that. But there are people who do, and I don't know, I can't say it's the worst thing. Although it is kind of questionable because they're like ghosts of children in there, aren't there? I'm not up to date on the lore, but okay, if that's the case, no. If not, okay, whatever. I'd chase your bliss unless you're like doing some freak shit, you gotta draw a line somewhere. You gotta draw a line. But honestly, I'm like not even really talking about that. I'm mostly talking about like I saw a lot of people like getting very into the purple guys specifically. And it's so strange. I don't know how to. We're getting to the point where I'm at a loss for words. I don't even really know how to classify this. How to like classify this attraction that people felt for this like pixelated serial killer figure and these like weird animatronics and stuff. I don't know how to classify it, but I can't deny that it does fall within, monsterfuckery jurisdiction, for lack of a better term, I guess. It's like haunted animatronics and a serial killer who falls into like kind of the slasher trope. It's got a little bit of that slasher flavor. It's got a little bit of that. It's got kind of like a creepypasta flavor to it. Like I could see this whole thing being like based on a creepypasta. I know it isn't, but like I could see it being something like that. It gives off vibes. But it's like it's lower down because like I don't know how you talk about this with someone, I don't know how you say to someone like my ideal is the animatronic fox from Five Nights at Freddy's, and I know that is some people's ideal, and I guess go for it, brother. I can't stop you. I just don't get it. I'm gonna try to not make most of my comments on this section like that, but it's gonna be tough because next we do have Bill Cipher from Gravity Falls, the Triangle Man with the big eye. Honestly, yeah, in a theoretical sense, I could sort of get this character. I could get the attraction to this character more than like Five Nights at Freddy's animatronics or serial killers or whatever. He's a little farther down, even though he was very prevalent. He was a very prevalent Tumblr sexy man, and like Tumblr monster sex. Yeah, okay. He was a very prevalent Tumblr monster sexy man for sure for a while, but it's been a while since Gravity Falls has aired, and he's fallen a little bit like out of the public eye. Like he's still around, but like with people who are like diehard fans, you know, and who are also extremely strange individuals. Which isn't like, I know I've been trying not to like judge too hard, but I did put this lower down also in part because some of the behavior of people that particularly stan Bill Cipher is like on a different level. Like there are a lot of people who have interests that I don't really get that just kind of keep to themselves, and there are people who have interests I don't really get that I'm forced to witness because we'll share, like we're like neighbors, you know. We're in the same neighborhood, but I'm like out here minding my business, and I open my door one day and they have like a dumpster on fire in their front lawn, you know. I can't. And it's only about to get worse because the next one is Has Been Hotel, which is more recent than Gravity Falls and to a degree, I guess, Five Nights at Freddy's, though I guess it was in production for like a long ass time. I don't really have strong opinions on the show because I haven't watched it because I have no desire to, and it definitely falls into the Tumblr sexy man overlap for sure. Like not even just one character, but like the sort of design of the characters in general fits a particular niche. Like if you know, you know. Once again, if you know, you know. You look at them and you're like, yeah, that was made by someone who probably drew humanized Bill Cipher a lot of times. It's got a similar vibe, the style of the show, and that can be good or bad depending on like your personal tastes. I'm not trying to, but the point is, they're off on Has Been Hotel stands are off on like their corner of the internet as well. And I also I sort of just like see them pass by doing their own thing, and I'm like, no. Next level down, I've got, well, I guess these are sort of both on the same level, but I'm going to start with King Candy, the character from Wreck-It Ralph. I didn't want to put this. There's some of these that I like straight up didn't want to put here, but like if you Google like Monsterfucker, like they'll just show up, and you're like, show up in big numbers, and like you'll just have to be like, oh, I guess I have to put you here, I guess. Specifically, King Candy like takes on a monster form near the end of the movie. If you haven't seen it, spoilers, I guess, for Wreck-It Ralph. I don't think anyone's gonna get mad at me for that, but who knows? He takes on a monstery form near the end, and apparently there are some people that are very into that monstery form, which is a thing. It's how you do. If it's live your truth, I guess. The movie it's so gone. It was such a while ago, and the fact that there are like apparently still people who are like making like not even straight up sexual, but like often like just kind of like weirdly suggestive but also frightening like King Candy monster form art. Like it's strange to me, but you gotta admire the tenacity, and it does very much embody sort of the spirit of what I'm talking about with like scary and definitely not like conventionally attractive by any stretch of the imagination, but people are into it. People are drawn in by this freaky bald candy man and his like bug parts. Ugh. Okay, Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. Popular horror internet series. I watched I think the first 4 videos. I had at the time it was coming out, I had a sort of a lower threshold for like fucked up shit, and I had a hard time sitting through it, but I didn't want to see what all the hype was about, of course. This has to be where it is, because to be interested in like the antagonists of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, you both have to like be interested in like, the stuff I've been talking about, like a morally corrupt or monstrous or villainous. Not all these are like that, obviously, but like that is something that is a taboo that appeals to people. You have to be interested in like the scary, gross, bad element of it. you have to be drawn in by that, but you also have to overlook the fact that they're fucking puppets. And that's another level. That's another level I can't really parse with my human brain. But there was a time when people really wanted to fuck the clock from Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. They wanted it so bad, and they drew many a gajinka. And the gajinkas, I guess, sort of like water it down a little bit, because it's like they're less like outright monstery then. Is it more or less monstery to be like God, to be like a humanoid, not even a humanoid really, but just like an animate clock? I mean, the Gajinkas were more distinctly human, and so I think it was easier for people to imagine having romantic or sexual relationships with them. That makes sense, sort of. But it's like, I don't know if it makes it better or worse in my mind, and I can't dwell on this. We're on the last tier, and I can't get stuck. I can't, like, get my brain all locked up in the final stretch, because it's time to talk about first The Dark Crystal, which is a good movie and a good series. There's a series now on Netflix, which has revitalized a lot of interest. But the thing about this, very similar to the King Candy thing, me and my friend were talking about what was going to go on this tier list, and she googled like Monsterfucker or Monster something, and apparently a lot of Skeksis porn came up. The Skeksis, if you're not familiar with the Dark Crystal franchise, are the antagonists. They're like big scary vulture puppet creatures, sort of. They're very bad to look at, but that's intentional. Like, they're supposed to be like basically manifestations of like greed and evil, because this alien being was like split in half. This is spoilers for the original movie, but like, it was in the 80s. Like, I think it's too late. I think it's too late for me to care about giving spoilers for The Dark Crystal, the movie from the 80s. But like, yeah, okay. Like, oh, this is making me think I should have put Labyrinth on this list. Like, probably very high up, because it's like, it's David Bowie, but at the same time, it's David Bowie, so it's complicated. There's complications there. I'm not talking about that now. I'm talking about The Dark Crystal. I'm talking about, why do you want to fuck the Skeksis? Why do you want to fuck... I can almost understand wanting to fuck the Mystics. I don't like it, but they do seem like they have, like, kind of a comforting presence, and, like, they got lots of arms, and... I don't want to think about it. That's not my thing. I'm sorry. So The Dark Crystal, movie, series that I enjoy very much. But this side of it was surprising to me, and that's why it's going down here. Because it's like, maybe part of it is just the shock factor to me. I didn't expect my day to be going like this, and now here I am. I'm gonna breeze right past that. We're in the final tier, which means I have to talk about the overlap of like Monsterfucker community stuff and true crime, which, like, I feel like this has been like talked about to the point of exhaustion. You know, like, yeah, there's always been like weird people out there that like really want to fuck like a real life serial killer, and I don't like that. In fact, I pretty much hate it. Like, most of these I'm just kind of like, do whatever you want, man. But like this actually kind of actively sucks, and it's like not even like, I'd say like a main, it's not like something you're going to encounter with, like, I feel like the majority of Monsterfuckers, or else it would be higher up on the list probably. But it's like I've seen the overlap, and I've seen it enough that I wanted to talk about it. And now I don't really know why I wanted to talk about it, because it's just uncomfortable. But it's like, yeah, like, just like, watch Hannibal again if you have to, but don't like, fantasize about real, like, violent criminals, please. Please. For me. But that brings us to the last thing I have on this list, and it was hard for me to decide what would go, like, on the deep down of this. Like, it was easy to come up with stuff for the top, obviously, and it was easy for me to, like, think about, like, haha, funny Tumblr trends, you know, that were strange to my brain. But now we're at the bottom, and I had to really think about, like, what is, like, something that, like, even the most seasoned of Monsterfuckers would see someone wanting to fuck and, like, just be like, I can't, I'm out, actually, I'm out. And that brings me to the Tingleverse, or as you might know it, Chuck Tingle novel line, Chuck Tingle books. How do I broach this? if you've probably seen Chuck Tingle books, like their book covers in like memes and stuff, or if you haven't, like look it up. You're not gonna get a face full of dick probably. Like the covers are all just like generic erotic covers, but with a twist. With a little bit of a twist, which is usually that it's like features like a conventional like, you know, a conventional erotica model standing next to like a dinosaur or like a jet plane with a human face. It's stuff like that. The dinosaur stuff, I've seen people who like the dinosaur stuff. I don't really get it, but that's not even this far down. What I'm talking about here is like the stuff with like the human Tide Pods and like the concept of time and like getting fucked in the ass by my own ass, you know? Like, and like that's not even like the deep dive stuff. That's just like stuff I encountered in casual Googling. And it's like, are the Tingleverse books a joke? Are they sincere? Who even knows? Like, if they're a joke, then the author is very committed to the bit. Because if you interface with any of his social media or listen to the podcast or anything, yeah, I've done some digging. I've done some digging here. I find it all very interesting, definitely, and I sort of feel like almost offended on the author's behalf when people are like rude about like the book cover that everyone's joking about of the week or anything like that, because I think, like, despite this being at the very bottom of the list, the list is not like, it's not a judgment of character, it's not a judgment of like good or bad. I highly respect Chuck Tingle and his body of work. I don't understand it, and I don't think I could like sit through reading it even as a joke, but I do absolutely respect like the sheer amount of like stories about having like sex with like various creatures and inanimate objects with human faces and like metaphysical concepts and stuff like that. I'm so in awe, and I so admire all of that, and I had to put it somewhere, and I realized at the end of the day, it just really doesn't get any like, it doesn't get any deeper than that, you know? We've reached the bottom. This is like one of those weird like sea creatures you see swimming in the abyss at the bottom of the very bottom of the deep dark of the sea. And I feel like in a way that is what Chuck Tingle would want. Like, he is like, it feels like it falls into monsterfuckery almost only as like a technicality. Like I don't really know how it fits into this whole ecosystem. I don't know if that's even really for me to understand, but it's there. And I can't think of like any better way to wrap this up than just to tell you to go. I guess go read Chuck Tingle's books, or don't if you don't want to, because I'm not going to. I'm sorry. But yeah, here we are at the bottom of the abyss, and we made it out alive. And I hope that y'all learned something and maybe like unlocked some weird repressed memories of like some very cringe time you spent on the internet. I know I did while making this. Oh my god, I did. But yeah, I don't know. I imagine this is probably going to only reach people like within the community anyway. And if that is so, I'm sure you've got like a lot of opinions of things I missed or things that were like formative to your own experience of the monster community that you would like to contribute. And if you do feel that way, you can leave a comment. Oh my god. You can leave a comment. And if this whole thing is just wildly confusing to you, you can also leave a comment expressing that sentiment. That's fine. Whatever. I'm sort of putting myself in, I feel like, a weird, vulnerable position with all this business. I don't really have any excuse. I can't cover for myself here. I am who I am, and who I am is not someone that gets off to the Five Nights at Freddy's animatronics, but it is someone that like, I don't know, let me change something from this list. Someone that thinks like the Bog King from Strange Magic was kind of charming and cute, and like, who even knows? It's such a weird, wild world of like tropes and interests and sexuality and the ways all those things interlap and like the cultures that build up within like fandoms and like niche internet communities and stuff. It's such a wild world to live in, and I hope that we've all come away from this feeling a little more confused about it. Anyway, that's going to be about it for this, but I don't know if I'll make more videos like this. It's such a strange thing. I'm not really used to making videos, which I'm sure is obvious with, like, the quality of all of this. I'm sure it's, like, wildly apparent. But this was fun. It was pretty fun, honestly. I'd like to do more stuff like this, maybe in the future. But for now, you can find me on, I'm sure this comes as no surprise to you, a Tumblr blog known as Date a Monster, no spaces or underscores or anything. I'm also on Twitter as Cranboggles, same name as my YouTube thing here, at least for now. And yeah, if you want to come stop by and chat or something, come say hey. Like, I got nothing better to do, obviously. I spent like all day making this. Holy shit. Okay, that's gonna be it for me. Goodbye.